The aim of the trek was to raise awareness and money to assist the eradication of polio, which is a project of Rotary International. Ken had been to Everest before and had even jumped off a mountain called Cho Oyu in Tibet in a paraglider. So he's pretty gung-ho, really. I don't know if you were here last year when Ken talked, but boy, he's an interesting fellow. One of the trekkers in last year's Everest assault was our own Laurelle. And she definitely wasn't planning to do any jumping. Laurelle's reasons for going on the trek were that at the time she was already looking for an adventure and a personal challenge. By the way, my personal challenge would be to read more books. Not to trek to Everest Base Camp. She wanted something she could do for herself. And when Ken announced the trek 2 years ago, her mind was open to it and it seemed to fit perfectly. She immediately said that she was going without any hesitation, wow, or research, and the fact that she knew people who'd been there seemed that it was possible for her too. The extra challenge was that the trekkers each had to raise funds. They had to raise money for their airfare as well as $2,000 for the polio cause, so each trekker had to contribute to the fund for End Polio Now. This was going to be outside her comfort zone, but being such a good cause made it somewhat easier. So thank you very much, Laurelle, for agreeing to come today and to talk about the trek from your perspective. We want to hear your perspective. Okay, can we
Well, welcome everybody. I might actually hold this.
Yes, you can hold it. Oh, wait, who's going to do it? No, just do it.
Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you. We're just about explained some of the beginning of my talk. So that is true that I was looking for a challenge at the time, and I was at the very farm field days, and Ken made an announcement over the loudspeaker, and that certainly pricked my ears straight away. And I thought, I've always wanted to go to Nepal, and so I couldn't wait to get over there and talk to him about it, and I didn't realise it was a fundraiser at the time. And so I said, yeah, I'm definitely interested. And within a month, I think it was, I'd paid my deposit and thought, all right, the fundraiser part's going to be a real challenge because that's a bit out of my comfort zone. And so I thought, oh well, you can do things if you put your mind to it somehow. And so then I started to put a plan in place to do training. I was already doing some walking. And I just upped that to a minimum of at least 6 kilometres a day. And then started going up the drawing room rocks. I don't know if you're all familiar with the drawing room rocks, but I was doing that regularly. I joined a gym and did a lot of steps and upper body strength and Pilates. And as it got further on, I started to put weights in my backpack and walk with my backpack. Most days. So with the fundraising, I sent out emails to friends and people I sort of knew. I did a lot of return and earn by collecting bottles and cans out of places that had weekend or had accommodation places that were nearby. So I raided a few bins and had GoFundMe site and movie. We did some movies where we sold the tickets, and pretty much I followed up on the emails and I raised my $2,000. So that worked out quite well in the end. I didn't have to pay any extra. The other thing is there were vaccinations for health reasons like hepatitis, and I had another polio or Bootrix, typhoid, just all preventatives. And then, of course, there was the checklist I had for all the trekking, the hiking gear, medications. It was huge. I had lists everywhere, actually, because I'm a little bit of a detailed person, so I made lots of lists and just crossed them off. So there's a lot of gear to get if you haven't actually got or gear for cold climates. So I virtually had to buy everything for that. And thermals. And then, of course, by the time it came closer, last week we had a rest. We didn't do anything for the last week before we let our bodies recover. And then we're about, I think that was about it, really. We're ready to go on our way. So what I'll do is I'll run a slideshow and try to explain some of the things along the way. Okay? Definitely about the journey, not the destination. So we flew with Southern China Airways and went through China and then to Kathmandu. And this was our group when we arrived at the airport. We were very welcoming. We stayed at a place owned by a Rotarian. The next day, we actually went to the Monkey Temple. But I'll just say by the time we actually arrived there, it was 10:30 their time, which by the time we got to bed was 5 a.m. our time. So it was a long journey. This is at the Monkey Temple. Just, give them a coin and you get a picture taken. There were quite a few monkeys around there. And that stupa is the oldest in Nepal. Yeah, they enjoy sweet things. Wait, I didn't feed him that.
That's all. Now you're on, yeah.
Still at the Monkey Temple. All the prayer flags. This is their electricity wires. I don't know how they know what they're doing, but it's quite amazing, really. He was being cheeky. I guess he thought another tourist. That's some of the shops, what they make. So I'll run through a few slides at Kathmandu first. There's fish, mainly fish, maybe chilies, all dried. There's little stalls, are very basic. Nepal is, he sewed on a logo on my t-shirt, but just the old sewing machine and very simple. A lot of pulses and beans and there. It's just the colour and very colourful place. It was St Patrick's Day. Yeah. So just part of the scenery. The fridge on the, I don't know. I didn't like to see what happened there. I thought it was quite amazing, it was worth a picture. That's just a local scene. It's another temple that, or stupa, that was nearby in Kathmandu that we walked through. She's selling corn for the birds. She wasn't aware I took that, I don't think. Little stalls just in each little section there. It looks like it was an old temple. They just sell different produce or wares. And yeah, it's just on our way back from a little bit further out of town. They're putting the gravel. They've got two spades, they're linked with a rope and they both lift it together, and because the woman has to carry it all. It's just the colour, the different bags they make. That's very typical of prayer wheels, little prayer wheels, and the little bowls, and it's all very typical of what you find over there. And they're colourful cloths. Again, there's similar sort of bowls and prayer wheels, etc. Notice the sheep's or goat's heads. I did take a close up, but I thought I would present you with that one. But that's a typical butcher shop. And the colourful flowers or blaze. Just little stalls anywhere you come across. She's having a cigarette. I just thought it was, I could not, take a photo of that one. And some of the wall hangings and paintings. Yeah, it's always a woman. No, I don't know what was in that, but it looks heavy, but maybe it's not as heavy as it looks, I don't know. But it was huge. She's cooking corn, selling corn. And she was there during the day and in the evening as well. I know we've left Kathmandu, arriving at Laurelle Airport, which is the most dangerous, supposedly the most dangerous airport in the world, because you've got the wall at the end when you land and it's a very short runway. So this is just arrived off that plane. We had our group, there were 21 of us, and we went in two separate planes. And that's just where the plane takes off, and there's a helicopter. There's a helicopter pad just on the right-hand side, and it's taken off, so the plane will wait till it's out of the way. Now the porters and guides are here with us, and they're packing up our bags. They carry two each. That's a group of us just before we left. Like still in Laurelle. Yeah, that's one way to carry them. They usually have, and they can have two bags. For us, there was one porter with two bags. And so we're on our way. The weather was okay there, it wasn't too bad. It's just a little, it's just a bit cute. I was a bit amazed at how the yaks just go up and down the stairs, and the mules as well. And it's just started to rain a little bit, and we had a little bit of snow in this first. It was about 4 hours we walked. So the little villages, they're more prayer wheels, give you blessings, and it's a spiritual thing. You turn them, they go clockwise, and you should turn them 3 times. So the mules, we passed through a few little Sherpa villages along the way. It's actually quite damp underneath there now, the rocks are quite wet. And it's our first bridge of 11 on the way up. I quite enjoyed them actually. Some people didn't. So just a little village. We're at about 2,800 at Lukla metres. That's a Mahdi stone with prayer on that. I asked the guides what that said, but he couldn't tell me. I think it was old prayers, but he didn't understand what they said. They were quite common actually, the Mahdi stones. We saw a lot of them. It was always wise to keep out of the way of the mules and the yaks. We always had to move over because they don't really stop for them. Yeah. And if it's on a narrow ledge somewhere, you go on the high side, not on the edge. There's a little veggie patch. We didn't see much of well, I think that's about the only one I saw. There's a lot of stonework in fencing and pathways, especially along this area, in the lower area. We actually headed down that day. We went down about 200 metres for our accommodation that night. There's another Mahdi stone at the top. Yeah, they always got the prayer flags always, you can tell by the wind how much wind there is with the prayer flags. Just very typical of the village. And that was quite typical of our meals. We had like spaghetti, there's rice, potatoes, a bit of cabbage and a few veggies. And that was our diet. No meat the whole trip. This is our first night accommodation, so we have arrived early in like afternoon. So we had a free afternoon. And that's the next morning, heading off again. She was quite willing to let me take a photo. She didn't mind. Just another bridge. So we didn't see a lot of water running, being at the end of the season, I guess, before the rains. I just like the way the donkeys all went up and down stairs. Well, they're not donkeys, they're mules. It's a little bit hard to see that. So we kind of followed the creek, this one, or yeah, it's basically called a creek. And it was a reasonably easy walking to begin with that day. Quite casual, we just took our time, there was no rush. Couldn't feel any effects of altitude at that point. This would have been just a break. Ken's on the right and two of the other guys. Two brothers actually, the others. There's a little area there where the cows were. There wasn't much space. And a village by the creek, or the river probably. We didn't go down in there, we always went around some of those. I just like the way that the mules are walking across from a different angles. But they're doing it every day. Now with the litter, they did have places along where you could put your litter, you can put your glass and cans and other rubbish in the other compartment. I didn't see any rubbish along the track at all. Oh, this is the St Edmund Hillary bridge. One of our trackers having a rest, waiting for all the mules and the yaks on the other side to pass. Everything that there's no roadways, there's no cars, no trucks, no bikes. Everything that goes up there has to be carried. Either by mule or yak or man. Every single thing. So this is at Nanchi. I arrived there. We stayed here for 2 nights. It's starting to get quite cold, actually. Even though it's sunny there, it's there's quite a chill in the air. So on our rest days, we didn't really have a rest. We always did a acclimatisation walk, which I think Ken said a couple of hours, but it was always 4 or 5 hours. Quite strenuous. We'd always go up 250, 300 metres, just to acclimatise and then go back down and sleep another night. So we did that twice, 2 different places. She was just spinning the wool. She makes a lot of beanies and gloves and clothing. So it's just a night shot in the markets at Nanchi Bazaar. On the stupa. I actually see the stupa as you enter into Nanchi. It's quite big. But the weather was really good here, it was beautiful sunshine. So during the days it wasn't too bad, but the nights were very cold. I think we're all feeling quite good. Everyone was going along well. Mount Everest is a little mound in the background. And that's when we first saw Everest. I think that's the only time we actually saw it. Along the tracks were quite dusty in places because of the amount of traffic with the yaks and mules and people. When we went, there wasn't a lot of people, there was only a few groups. But also, the person in front would lift the dust. There was just a lot of dust. It's very fine, it's like a powder. It's a lunch stop, which were all quite scenic, so they're nice to have a rest and just look around. That's Dablin, which is supposed to be a mountain in the background. They say the most photogenic or prettiest mountain. One of my guides took that photo and sent it to me. I didn't know who took it. I did a few panoramas to try and get more of a perspective of the whole mountain range. Tengboche, the monastery here, we went up into the monastery. We had to take our shoes off, and there was a monk who was saying prayers. We were probably in there maybe up to half an hour. And I sneakily took a picture of the Buddha, which we were told not to take pictures of, but I heard a guide telling someone else that as long as you don't use flash, it's okay. So I figured it was all right in the end. That's looking down from the monastery. Paradise Lodge. Well, that second one from the end was my room, a shared room. I wouldn't really say it was paradise. There was ice in the morning on the windows, and there was gaps in the windows, and it was just freezing. The tea houses are very basic over there. They're just a bed in a room. Sometimes you might have a toilet attached. So we're getting up into the higher country towards the top of the tree line. Becomes very stony. This area was very dusty. You can see it's a light powder. So I was wearing a mask, wearing a buff around me at that time. It was just, it wasn't good to breathe it in. So another meal. So we've got pasta, rice with a few little veggies and potato chips. That's lunch. Lots of carbohydrates. One thing that was quite important was to have electrolytes in our water, because the energy you're using walking, as the air becomes thinner, it becomes a lot harder.
Is that you?
Oh yes, yeah, that was me. And this was our guides, 4 guides. They were really good, really friendly, lovely guys. So this is Tengboche at 4,400. This is where it was minus 21 overnight here, and it was really cold. We had 2 nights, same thing, a rest day. But our rest day, we walked up 400, oh no it wasn't, it was about 300 metres. And we had a dust storm. So it was really unpleasant because the dust was getting into everything. Again, about 5 hours just to go up 250, 300 metres up and around and back down. But the scenery is spectacular. So we walked along, there's a tiny little house, a little building along there. We went up and along to that and then came back down. And the building, yeah, it's right down in the flat where we stayed. But it was so cold. When we got back to the room, the dust was coming in around the windows. It was just coming in all over our beds. It was just...
Was it very windy, was it?
Yeah, we had a dust storm. Yeah.
The whole...
No. Just that day we had a dust storm that day. Most of the time it was calm. We didn't have wind. So now we're on our next day. A little bit of a repeat of the day before to start with. So we're up on a higher plateau now. That's me on the left with one of the other, Jackie, one of the other girls. A lot of the walking becomes, when you're going up the hill, becomes 3 or 4 steps and then a rest. You're starting to, your oxygen is getting lower. By the time you get to Everest, it's only 50% you get. So we're probably 70% or something here. Or maybe less. So it's a matter of pushing your body, I think. You need to be physically fit. So the yaks, they're always loaded up on the way up. Everything, even water, just everything has to be taken up. There's just nothing up there. No other way of getting it there. Oh, except the helicopter. If you can afford a helicopter, which the local people can't. So it becomes quite rocky now, quite watching where you put your feet, stepping over rocks around them. And some porters there carrying water, probably. I don't know what they're carrying that. It's probably heavy. Yeah. They're very strong, very fit. Yeah, so he's just come up a hill to this point. And we move out of the way, we let them go. This was where the memorials are for the people that died mainly on Mount Everest. Scott Fisher is one of them, Into Thin Air, you might have read the book. But there's memorials all through this particular area. Quite a lot, actually. But it's very barren now. You've got the glacier sort of going down through there, just all ice. So it's all frozen on the left and just rock. I like the yaks.
So they're still going?
Yeah, they're still going, yeah. I was quite often at the back, actually, because I was taking photos and I get left behind. I'm trying to think where the people are. Gone up through there somewhere. Yeah. So this is Lobouche, or Lobouche, at 4,900 metres. Oh, there we go. So on the way back, this was all snow, but I'll get to that. So we stayed in, it was very cold, staying at -20 overnight. The rooms are so basic, there's no heating anywhere, a little bit of heating just in the restaurant while you have your meal at night, and then they stop, they don't fill up the heater anymore to keep it burning. So yeah, on the it's a little bit like snow, but it was mainly ice. Yeah, this is the sort of places we were going up. And it takes quite a while actually, because sometimes you might only take two steps and just have another breath or two, and you're really getting down into the lower oxygen levels. So it doesn't look very far, but it actually might take you 20 minutes to get up that little area. So there's a few other groups that were walking at that point or around the time we were there. You can see the people in the middle there, just in the distance. Well, they're not really that distant, but a rest spot, just all sit around. Chocolate was fantastic to have. You always carried some chocolate with you because it gave you such a boost, even just 2 little bars. We had snacks, bars, chocolates, nuts, anything like that to keep us going. So you can see the people up there on the left-hand side. So that's where we were heading. That's base camp. Base camp is just in here now. Now, I've probably zoomed in on that one, so yeah, so back here. That could be about an hour away. That's just all the ice and snow. Everest is actually behind, Nuptse was on the right hand side, and Everest is actually over behind that. You can't see it. So you make your way through all this rock. There's kind of a path there. That's what I said, you need to be physically fit. You can see the people in the distance, in the middle of the photo. Actually, I was thinking base camp's at least 3-hour walk from here. So even though you can see where it is, it just takes so long. This is Gorak Shep. This is the highest place for accommodation. They don't live there all year round. You can see in winter it becomes too cold and snowed in. But that's 5,180 metres. So we stayed here that night, we had lunch and came back and stayed overnight here. And that's where, sleeping is very difficult in the high altitudes. Your heart is racing, like you might be jogging on the beach. So at night while you're trying to sleep, your heart's just pumping away, and you can virtually hear it. So it makes it really hard to sleep. In fact, I didn't get a lot of sleep at all. For some reason, I think I wasn't quite warm enough. So as base camp, you can see some of the tents there now, little yellow bits. That's at least half an hour's walk from where I was when I took that. Oh, well, actually, I was back here. It's half an hour. So it's just all built on glacier, really. It's a rock that falls from the mountain. It's an ice. It's quite dramatic, really. So we had to walk across ice, which was, you had to be really careful to go across where the others are. That's our guides again. They're all used to it, they've been there before. They're all happy and okay. I was feeling quite, I don't know about exhausted, but it was tough. So those yaks are still taking provisions further up. So that's, there I am. I've had a fall just after I left base camp. And they've put me on a horse, on a mule. So I wasn't in a good state. I don't know how I slept. I couldn't. I can come back to that. This is where we went back to Laurelle, and that was our deluxe room because it snowed 6 inches overnight. So that was a thick mattress, 6-inch mattress. We had 2 doonas, and that's fairly typical of the toilets, the squat toilets. That's quite a good one actually. And you have a little bowl of water, a container of water where you can wash after you've been. That was our helicopter because I got, 3 of us, or 4 of us actually, went back by helicopter. And there's just a scene through the helicopter, in the helicopter. Actually, I loved the ride because I mustn't have been that bad, it was just my fall. I really enjoyed the helicopter ride back. It was another way, even though I didn't want to walk back. So it was Namchi-Bazaar was the other one. We're back Kathmandu. That's just a scene from the helicopter. And that's a farewell sunrise, I guess, because there's so much dust in the air.
Spectacular photographs.
I try quite a lot. It's hard to choose which one.
It's wonderful. Has anybody got any questions? How did you get into work when you
It
started?
was 8 days to walk from Lukla to Everest base camp. Yeah, it was only about a 3-day return for the ones who walked back
You sleep.
in the snow. Yeah, I don't know what happened really. One of the guys said I turned when the yaks were coming, the bells were going, and maybe I was on rocks. I was on wet rocks because it was already snowing at base camp. It started to snow. So I don't know, but I hit my head and cut just on my brow bone. So there was a lot of blood, and I had a really big black eye. Yeah, well, it was red then because it's just all everywhere around it filled with red. So when I got to the hospital, he got asked an optometrist to come and check my eye, and it was fine. It was just a surface, all surface, and the eye was okay. There were 3 others that came back, and they were a lot worse off than I was. But anyway, it's how things go, isn't it?
Can I ask about the finance too? You raised your fare, And the $2,000 was
Yeah.
a donation for polio.
Yes, that went to the polio.
What about the costs of your accommodation, your food?
Yeah, that was all, yeah, we paid for that ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
That was all
Yeah, it was $5,000 and we had to raise $2,000 and the rest was our airfare and accommodation and food. We had to buy our water, we had to carry our own toilet paper, we had to carry a lot of things really because they're not provided. Snacks, all our snacks, we had to buy those. But just our basic meals, breakfast, lunch and dinner were included. And our bed. And yeah, that was it.
Do the yaks and mules find food to eat on the way up? Or
I think that's what they carry up there for them. Yes, yeah, I think, there's nothing for them anywhere. Only in the lower down there is, but nothing up further. That's why when you saw those four standing together, there was no point in them going anywhere because there was nothing to eat. No. And they were empty, they were waiting to go back or take something back.
Did you use an iPhone or did you have obviously a good camera?
I had a camera, I also had a mobile. I did take some, then maybe some of those pictures were with my mobile. I had spare batteries and spare cards for my camera. Mobile, we had the chargers. It was difficult to charge anyway, so I had a portable backup charger, which I used a little bit. And when I could charge, we didn't have electricity in the rooms. There was nothing. You'd have to do that through the shop part.
My husband and my twin boys did this 6 weeks ago.
Okay.
Yeah. Their photographs, your photographs are spectacular.
Yeah, it was really. I had done research by the time I left, and going by previous years in the end of March, it's starting to warm up a little bit, but it wasn't when we were there. It was still just as cold as earlier in March.
Right.
So it was very cold at night. I know Ken said, our weather wasn't so good. We had a bit of a blizzard at one point as well. Oh, that was when the snow came through. We were unlucky in a way that in the morning that we went to Everest, it was clear and sunny and really beautiful morning. But by 1 o'clock, the clouds started to come in, and it was forecast snow. So by the time we got there at 3 o'clock, I think it was, a little bit of snow had started to come. And yeah, it was pretty cold. But we made it. It was all about the journey and the experience, and certainly worthwhile.
Yes.
It's spectacular scenery. The people are beautiful people. But you do need quite a few medications and that with you. Your skin, if you get a little cut in your finger or something, it's hard to heal it because the air is so dry and so cold. With the dust and the cold, you can end up with some blood in your nose, because it's irritated. And that wasn't just with me, others as well. You can get a little bit claustrophobic in your sleeping bag at night in a high altitude. I guess it's just a matter of being able to control your mind and take deep breaths and just relax. So I found that, and others did as well. Some others did as well. Because it was so cold, you didn't want to put your head out, and then with in the sleeping bag, you're sort of covered in, and your heart's bumping away, and so it's just being aware, I think, of those things are going to happen. And so it's a mental challenge as well as a physical challenge.
You're going again next year?
I haven't said no. But, I don't know.
Could I just say that I went in '94 1994, and we walked for 30 days.
Yes.
We didn't go out to the base camp. We went to Chukulguri, which looks down onto the base camp.
Right.
On the southern side.
Okay.
But I came back to talking more about the people than the mountains, because they were absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
Remarkable people.
Yeah, they are.
The one we had that was so memorable was a young woman called Sugi Fruti, and she carried all our eggs for 3 weeks in a steel crate on her back, with just a band across the forehead, and that was all. Balances the thing on her back. And she gave you a bowl of hot water to start the day, poked into your tent, and then she'd go and get breakfast for you, and then she would pack up the kitchen, and you would be leaving walking for maybe an hour while she did that, and then she'd come jogging down the trail with a giant pack on her back, singing as she went. And then she'd be there to greet you for lunch, and then she'd pack up the kitchen again and come past and jogging down the track again to greet you when you got to the final campsite, and you were absolutely exhausted, and she was still smiling.
Yeah, they are. We found the porters, and that they were serving us lunch and dinner as well as carrying our luggage, and they're all they're happy, friendly. Found that too, but I guess they're acclimatised as well.
Was there anyone that had to turn around and come back?
There was one. He had a sleep apnea machine, and he found when he got to 4,400 metres, and being minus 21 it was that night, that his machine wasn't working properly, and he, and I think he was a bit exhausted as well, so physically it was harder than he expected. So he turned back, but he walked all the way back with a guide. Yeah. So, otherwise the rest we stopped it.
Was there anywhere that you didn't actually have a bed to sleep on, like you slept on the ground?
No, I wouldn't be doing that, no. But that night, the night after I had the fall, that was okay. We still had our gear with us, but we were supposed to be taken out by the helicopter, and they couldn't get through because of the wind and all the weather. And the next day, they still couldn't come up. We were up at 6 in the morning, and they still couldn't make it. And then that whole day they couldn't, so we ended up another day. We were horsed down to Labuschagne, the next place, and so we had nothing with us because all our luggage had gone, so we only had our clothes on our back and our day pack, of which we didn't really have a lot in to service you for overnight. And so that was the deluxe room we were given, because the mattresses are only about this thick, and this mattress was really thick, and we had 2 doonas and all our clothes, and actually I had quite a good night's sleep. But we had nothing. We didn't have toothbrushes or nothing with us that night. And then the next day it took till after midday before the chopper was able to get through. So if you were in a really bad way, and you were there that extra couple of days, it's not a good result.
In 1974, I did the trek to baseball. And I'm surprised at the amount of buildings now compared to then.
Yes.
The porters actually went up barefoot.
Oh, did they?
And they didn't have shoes, and we gave our shoes to them at the end of the trek because they didn't have any. And guys went up there, and we were in tents at the time because there was no accommodation.
Yes.
And so we slept in the tents. And it was interesting because, as you would know, when the sun comes up, it doesn't often get to you because of the height of the mountains until maybe 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
We were there in December, so it was midwinter. And so you have to wait until the tents are defrosted before you can dismantle them and take them on. Otherwise they just snap and break. The porters are amazing because they go ahead of you. You know, they've waited behind, dismantled everything, packed everything up in barefoot, gone ahead, leapt past you because you can't walk that fast. And then they have your lunch ready for you and your dinner ready for you. And it's just amazing.
It is amazing. It is.
And our porters slept under a cotton blanket against a brick wall, against the stone wall. No tent, no cover.
There was nothing there, was it?
No.
We're all a bit soft.
Felt awfully sorry for them.
It's another world.
Oh, thank you. So there's just a little appreciation. Thank you very much, Laurelle, for telling us all about that. Amazing photos, and it really gave us a sense of the place where you walked, and the culture, and the food, and all sorts of things. But I'm sorry, you didn't inspire me. I think it's wonderful that you went, but I'm going to stick with my books. It was just amazing, and you're very, very, very clever.
I enjoyed the physical challenge.
Yes, and I know Maggie's thinking about it.
I'm not now.
No?